Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'd like to thank the FOG Software Group, in particular my colleagues and partners over at Friedman Corporation for putting this together for us, as well as our colleagues at Logimex and Varsity Logistics. Of course, most of all, thanks to you for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn a bit more about the software that we here at TL Ashford offer. My name is Mike Schuett. I'm with TL Ashford. I've been here for about the last 25 years. I'd like to tell you quite a bit about our software today, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Here at TL Ashford, we offer two software solutions, Barcode400 and TLAForms. I'd like to give you kind of a high-level view of each one so you have an idea of what they do and how they do it, and then we'll take a more detailed look at each package right after that. So let's take a look at Barcode400 first. Barcode400 is an IBMI-based software package, and it's used to design and print labels like you see here. Product labels, location labels, shipping labels, pretty much anything that has to be labeled anywhere in the supply chain. Most of those labels include barcodes, but you don't necessarily have to have barcodes. In fact, one of our longtime customers who's become a friend over the years called me last week, and what happens is a lot of times companies will get our software in to do one or two labels or to satisfy an application or two, and then they start getting comfortable with the software and looking for other applications. And over Halloween, their company had a dress up for Halloween. The tech group wasn't so into it, so they came up with a little tech humor here and developed this label. So you can use Barcode400 to label raw materials, products, warehouse locations, shipments, and it seems now you can even label the humans at your company. With Barcode400, we create labels using a graphical designer, and those labels, though, are stored directly to the AS400. Now, when you design those labels, you use data from your IBMI files, like your physical files, your logical files, but you can also use data from your application software. And that data is passed from your software, like from your Frontier from Friedman, or your warehouse management or Varsity shipping software. Barcode400 is geared toward printing to thermal transfer type of printers. We can also print to HP and compatible models. That includes copiers. We can also even output the label formats as PDF documents. But for the most part, our customers print those labels on these big industrial type of thermal transfer printers. You also hear them referred to as thermal printers, but similar to what you see here. So that's a high-level view of what Barcode400 does. Now let's take a look at TLAForms, that same high-level view. Like Barcode400, TLAForms has a graphical designer to let you create your forms. And with TLAForms, you turn your traditional IBMI spool files, like you see here, which is already being generated by your applications, into forms like these. And those forms can be straightforward, simple black and white, to complex and full color. They include invoices, customer statements, pick lists, pack lists, order acknowledgments. You can even produce checks with TLAForms. The micro font that you use for check printing is a standard feature within the software. TLAForms can print your form to pretty much any printer. It's probably obvious that these printers are going to be, for the most part, your laser type printers or copiers. You can print to printers connected to your IBMI. You can print to any printer connected to your network. We'll also print to any printer connected locally to a Windows driver. TLAForms can also generate your form as a PDF document, and that document can be archived automatically to your network, or we can even automatically email the PDF for you. So that's a high-level view of TLAForms as well. So we have labels, we have forms. Now let's take sort of a generic application you might experience at your shop, whether you're manufacturing or maybe working in warehouse management or shipping. This is a generic type of workflow, if you will, but no matter what application you're working on, whether that's manufacturing, warehouse management, shipping, you can probably relate a little bit to this sequence. So let's say in the Frontier software, for instance, you go into the iSchedule and you release a run. That run could generate a work order label that follows that product through manufacturing. When that production is complete for that particular product, you can scan that work order label and automatically have your product labels print to a printer right next to the operator, or you could have it print exactly where you want it to print, whether that's at a shipping dock or a packaging station. Once those product labels are printed, you can generate a pack list and then start to generate your box labels. And again, those print exactly where you need them to print. And when those products are ready to ship, you can have your shipping labels automatically print. And again, those can print exactly where you want them to print. So it makes the process very efficient. When the products are ready to print, maybe you scan the shipping manifest. Invoices can be automatically generated from the TLAForms software, and those invoices can be automatically emailed directly to your customer. In addition, a PDF is created and saved to your network, so you have an archive of all those invoices in case you need to retrieve those, reprint those, re-email those, or whatever the need might be. So Barcode400 and TLAForms can generate all of these labels and forms, and it can be automated with your software, whether that's your ERP, your manufacturing, your warehouse management, and or shipping. So now that we've taken a kind of a look at where we fit in each product, let's get detailed and look at the specific products, what they offer, and what it really takes to generate labels and forms using the TL Ashford software. We'll start with Barcode400, and as I mentioned, Barcode400 uses a graphical designer to design your labels. So I'm going to pull the Barcode400 software onto my screen. There we go. So I already have a label format open on our screen, and you'll notice to the right we have our properties panel. And these are just the properties for the label itself. The label format name, the size, the target printer that we intend to print the label to. I'll start out giving it a name, and we'll just call it something simple, demo. And there you have it. And we have the other properties as well. We're not going to manipulate those too much right now, but if you look to the top here, we have our menu bar, our standard toolbar, which is what you're used to with pretty much every PC package that you use. We can also have our main working toolbar where we can add objects to our label format. We can add text, multiple lines of text, lines, boxes, images, paragraphs. We also have barcodes and two-dimensional barcodes. So let's start pretty simple. I'm going to click on the A button to add text, and it gives us the text field properties window with all the properties we have to manipulate our text. We have a font selection. I'll go ahead and make a somewhat larger font. We can expand those font, rotate, justify. You'll notice at the bottom we also have variable data. And I'm going to get into this momentarily, but this is really sort of the power of this package, using variable data directly from your IBMI. We also have our data line. We have a prefix and a suffix which just prepend and append the data line to give you a bit more flexibility. If we just wanted to add some text to our label, I'll just type in TL Ashford, click OK, and click OK to put it on the label format. That's all there is to it. The same with a barcode. We'll go ahead and click the Add Barcode button. We have all the different symbologies available for you, and this is a full complement. Should be anything you need to develop any label format that you need. You can manipulate the height, the width, whether or not the human readable prints, and rotate. You can see you can also utilize the variable data. You also notice we have video help available on pretty much all the windows within Barcode400 to make your life easy if you need some guidance there. And similar to adding text, we can just key in data, and I'm just going to do a generic 1 through 9 and a 0 here. I'm going to leave the barcode default to code 39, which is a very common barcode. Click OK and place our barcode on the label format. That's all there is to it. Now we can draw lines and boxes. I'll just click the line and you draw your line. Pretty straightforward, pretty intuitive stuff here. And I don't want to harp on some of the simple stuff. I think it's probably pretty evident to most of you how easy it can be to design your label format then. But let's get into sort of the real power of our package, and that is using data from your IBMI and or your application programs. So if I click on the A button to add text, I can come down and insert variable data. And we can do data from your files or program, that's merge data. We can actually create prompts that prompt the user at print time to enter data. You can use the system date and time. You can even use incrementing numbers like serial numbers, 1 to infinity, or box counts, like a 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. And we have arrays for creating large columns of data. When we're talking about using file data, we generally go to the merge data, so I'll click that. And I have a file here called customast. Now, I'm going to use that file, and this file has been associated with the Barcode400 software. That is, I've told the software to go out and take a look at that file and map it. If you needed to add a new file or make a new file available to the software, we would just click the Add button and add the description to the list. It lists out a complete listing of the libraries that you have on your iSeries. And if I go to the customast, the $ customast that is, and we have a physical file called custmaster, we can even select down to the record format. Again, I already have this file brought in, so all we would do is click add the definition to the list to add it, but since we already have it in there, I'm going to click cancel. I'll go ahead and select that file, click OK, and we bring in the file and all the specs for you. But essentially we have all the fields in the file. We've numbered each field in the file, and you'll see why we number those momentarily. We also use sample data for each record. So as we're selecting data from the file and placing it on the format, we'll actually see the sample data in place of the field name here, just to give us a realistic impression of what the label is going to look like. So to select merge data or file data, I'll go ahead and click on the customer number and click OK. Now we get some field editing options. Zero suppress, remove spaces, maintain the field's length, and show decimal point. I'm going to leave those out for now and skip over them. We do have an option for substringing, that is taking particular bytes from within a field, and I'm going to come back to that here momentarily. For now, I'm just going to click OK, so no field editing options. And remember, we numbered each field in that file, and this is why we do it. This is our syntax, mbrokenbar01, to indicate that we have a merge field. If I hover over that, you can see just above our data field there, just above the mbrokenbar01, it's indicating that we're using the customer number, and it shows us the sample data. So I could go ahead and click OK, and click OK on my format to place that data. Now this is the customer number field. Whatever data comes through the customer number field when we're printing will go in this position. Just having the customer number there is a little boring, so I'll double click that to access it. Put my cursor in front of the mbroken bar, and I apologize, having trouble typing here. So we have our customer number. I'll click OK, and we can see that immediately appear on the label format. So pretty straightforward. Again, we can do the same thing with a barcode. If I click the barcode and we want variable data, I'll click merge data, and this time let's select the customer number, click OK, no editing options. So now we're barcoding the customer number, but let's say we want to string two fields together, and this is an important feature of the software because it gives you some autonomy to control your label design or manipulate your label design without having to ask programmers or outside sources to come in and change files for you. So if you need to encode in a barcode two different fields, let's say the customer number, and I'll click merge data again. I have a date field down here, and let's just say, for instance, you want to barcode the customer number as well as the date. I'll click OK again, and now we have two fields that we're going to encode in the barcode. That's great. I'll click OK and put that on our label, and as I expected, it's kind of wide, so if I single click on the barcode, we can manipulate the properties in the properties panel here. I can change that and shrink the width of the barcode down, and there you have it. Pretty straightforward, again, pretty easy. Let me show you one or two other things here before we move on. If you needed to put a, say, customer name and a address and a city, state, and zip, that's easily done using the multi-line text field. So if I click the multi-line and then I click on merge data, I'll select the customer name, click OK. No field editing options. I'm just going to skip through that from here on out. We're not going to use any. I'll click OK, and it puts our field into the multi-line text window. Now I can just hit the field exit to move my cursor below. Click Merge Data. I'll get the street address. OK, I'm going to hit Enter again to go to a new line. Select my city. No editing options. But now I want my city with a comma and a space. So I'm going to go ahead and actually key in a comma and hit my space bar. Click on Merge Data. Select the state. Click the space bar a couple times and get my zip code. So now we have the customer name, the street address, the city, the state, and the zip. I can click OK and put that on our form. So pretty straightforward, pretty flexible, pretty easy to design your label formats. A couple of quick things, and we'll move ahead. You can use images on your labels. You can use static graphics, or those images. You can actually tell us the name of the image you want to print based on data in your file, or the program can tell us. You can also have a user key that in at print time. That's not used very often, but for now I'm going to use a static graphic. And when I click on static graphic, all of these images have been imported into the software, and I have one here called Flam Gas that I'm going to use. So I'll click OK and put that on the label. You can also use two-dimensional barcodes. If I click the 2D barcode button, we have a nice selection there. I'm going to select the QR code, which is used pretty often these days, more with marketing really than other applications. I'll go ahead and type in the web address for TLAshford.com. You'll notice that the QR code has different, in this case fewer, properties than other barcodes, and that's why we break those out separately. You can also put a lot of data in a QR code, so we ask you to put that data within the curly braces so that you can actually make notes referring to what that data might be. It's just as easy to insert variable data, just as other barcodes and text. If I click OK, we can put our 2D barcode on the label. Now, one last thing. I mentioned earlier when it came to stringing fields together in a barcode, it gives you some autonomy. And we have another feature that does that too that's fairly powerful. I mean, it's simple, but we see it used so often, and it's a real benefit to you, I think. If I were to go up and add text, I'm going to leave my properties as they are. I'm going to click on Merge Data, and I want to get the date. And notice here that the date is in a month, day, and century format. If I go ahead and click OK, and I'll go ahead and click OK and put that on our label, that's how the field is being passed from the program or in your file, right? So if you wanted to put slashes in between the month, the day, and the year, or if you wanted to even move the century to the front, so it's century, month, day with slashes or dashes in it, you do not have to get anyone in programming or tech involved. And again, it gives you some autonomy to control your label formats, and it just sort of makes it easy and more timely for you. What you can do is use the substring feature within the software. So we have our date on the label format. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add that date again, only this time we're going to put slashes in between the month, the day, and the century. And we're going to use the substring feature. So when I click the date and click OK, we can check the substring feature, and I'm going to start in position 1 because I want to get the month here. So position 1 is correct. And I want 2 characters. I want the 08, so I'm going to put a 2 in there and click OK. When I hover over that, we can see that we've selected our date, and you can see that I've got the 08, which is our month. Now I can just key in a slash. Click Merge Data. I'll get that date field again and click OK. I'll check the substring. This time we want to go out to the 11. So we want to start in position 3. I'll change the start position to 3, and we want to get 2 characters for the 11. So I'll click OK. And when I hover that, you can see that I did in fact get the 11. So now we have the month, a slash, the date. And by the way, all this syntax here, it's just syntax within our software that tells us what you're doing. In this case, using merge data and substringing it as well. I'm going to go ahead and click the slash again. I'll get merge data again. We'll get the date, click OK. This time I'm going to start in position 5, which is where the 2 is. And we also want 4 positions, or 4 characters, to get the 2019. So now we have our month, we have our day, and we have our century divided by slashes. When I click OK, we've put that field, the date field, on our label in 2 different formats, using 2 different features within the software. Again, I don't mean to harp on it, but it makes it very flexible for you to control your labels and gives you that autonomy. So that's all there is to it, to design label formats. What I've shown you there could have taken us much less time without me talking so much, but you can probably design 95 to 99% of the label formats that you might need to design with what I've shown you here. So designing labels is easy. Now let's take a look at some other features within the software. Again, we print mainly to thermal transfer type of printers, which you see here. Here are some of the bigger names in the thermal transfer market. It's certainly not all the names. These are the ones you'll hear most often, though. Printers are coming out almost daily, it seems. In fact, it's very difficult for us to even keep our website up to date, making sure that we list out all the different printers that we can, in fact, support. So to see a complete list, you can go to TLAshford.com, and under Barcode400, we have our printer supported list. And again, we do our best to keep that up to date, but if you don't see a printer that you have, give us a call and we'll let you know one way or the other whether we can support that or not. And I have to say, in most cases, we can support just about any printer out there. Again, we also can print to HP and compatible printers as well. When you print your label formats, you can print interactively. We have a desktop application that allows you to select your label format, and we can actually read your file and select the files or the records from that file for you. If I actually come back to our label and save it, and then I'm going to bring up our interactive label print. I'll go ahead and bring that onto our screen. We don't have our label here. I'll press an F5 to refresh that. And when I select the label that we created called Demo, you can see we have 4 fields in our customer master file in the library $customast. We can select a record and click print to print that. We can press Control and select multiple records. We can check the Select All button to highlight all of those to print in sort of a batch mode. So it makes printing labels very easy directly from your desktop. When we click Print, we can select an output queue to print to our 400. We control the quantity, whether or not you want to hold it. And that's pretty much it. I'll cancel there and minimize that. The other way to print, and what most of our customers seem to do because it's very powerful, is integrate our software with your existing applications like your Frontier or your Logimax or your Varsity applications. That automates the label printing process. It controls where your labels print and exactly what point they print. And it might be a little extra work up front, but once you do that, it's completely automated. But you still have the autonomy to change and manipulate your label formats without getting programming involved. So it's a really nice combination, a really powerful combination. We can also integrate easily into in-house applications if you happen to have some of those where you need to generate labels. A few of the other features that are worth noting with Barcode400, we can encode RFID tags that are embedded in your labels when they go through your printers. You would obviously have to have an RFID printer, but that's no problem. We can print and embed, or rather encode those RFID tags. As I've mentioned a couple times, Barcode400 can generate your label as a PDF document. We can save the document anywhere on your network, and or we can automatically email that PDF for you. And one of the features, it's not really a feature of the software, it's really more of a feature of our technical support, is many industries and companies who might be your business partners, they require your labels to be set up a certain way. Think like the automotive industry, like Ford or GM or Tesla. If you print, or rather if you're generating labels to ship to Target or Home Depot, that uses the GS1 specification. Or if you need to print labels for, say, the U.S. Postal Service, FedEx, UPS, We actually have a library of thousands of these label formats. They're already designed for more than 500 companies. We provide these labels to you at no charge, and you don't have to worry about what font to use, what type of barcode, or where to place an item. You just plug in variable data, just like I showed you earlier in the demo, and you're ready to go. And of course, we provide instructions, and it's very easy to import. So hopefully that's a big benefit. That'll really help you out and make your life easy, meeting compliance specifications. So what are some of the key features of Barcode400? The software is based on the IBM I, so you have all the security, the reliability of the IBM I. You also have, traditionally the IBM I is backed up very regularly, so you always have a backup, and it's very common that we work with our customers to restore label formats when, we hit a glitch. You have the ability to completely automate the software so that it's part of your application. That's very easy to do, and it's very powerful. And you're also using IBM I data. That is the data directly from your applications. You're not uploading and downloading data to and from the IBM I. So you're using data in real time, and you have the autonomy to manage and manipulate your label formats in-house very easily. So that is Barcode400. Now let's take that same detailed look with TLAForms. Similar to Barcode400, in fact, if you can design a label in Barcode400, you can probably pretty easily design a form in TLAForms because the interfaces are very similar, and I'll try to reflect that in the speed with which I go through here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my TLAForm designer and pull that over to my screen. Now with TLAForms, to create a new form, we select a spool file that's already being generated on your system, and your applications are probably generating these spool files. So I could edit an existing form using the open form or create a new one, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. When you create a new one, we prompt you to select an output queue from a library. So I'm going to find a library where we keep our queues almost always in queue user sys. There we go. And within queue user sys, I have an output queue called $training. Within the output queue, I have a spool file called invoice. Now this is a spool file that's already on my system, and this is an IBM I spool file in this output queue. I'll select it, and we create a form. Now when we create a form, obviously it's blank. Similar to Barcode400, you have your properties panel. The form name automatically takes on the name of the spool file, which in this case is invoice. And you'll notice that we qualify that with the output queue and library. We have some other properties over here, but I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Now we could, just like Barcode400, start to add text. I could click the add text button and we could enter that in, and we have all the properties for our text, including the variable data options we have with TLAForms. What I'm going to do first, though, and this is more typical of the workflow with our customers, is I'm going to close that, and I'm going to click on spool data and field configuration. When I click field configuration, we actually display the spool file that we chose when we created our form. So this is an IBM I spool file, and this is how the spool file is laid out. And what we do here is we can select data in this spool file and use that to create a form. So for instance, if I want to create a field based on this invoice number, I'm going to click and drag and highlight the invoice number. When I do that, it gives us the option to create a field here at the bottom. So I can call that field whatever I'd like. I'm just going to call it the obvious invoice #. I'll click Save, and now we have a field in our created fields list, and we can use that field anywhere on our form. We can do the same with the page number. Now, before I create the page number field, notice up here that we have a page, and we have page 1 of 5. And as I click through that, you can see the data in our spool file here changing. Now that indicates that we have 5 pages in our spool file. The page that we have here is the page of the invoice. So here we have, I'm going to call this invoice 1, just going on this last digit. So we have page of invoice 1. If I go to page 2 of the spool file, we're still using invoice 1, but it's page 2. If I click up again, we have a second invoice then in this same spool file with a page. I'll do that one more time. And we have a third invoice. The third invoice also has 2 pages. So we have 3 invoices in this spool file. And this page number represents the invoice page number. I hope that's not too confusing. And sorry if it is. But I'm going to create a field based on the invoice page number, and I'll save that. Now we can also do that with our customer number, so I'll click on the customer number and we'll just call it cust pound. I'll save that. Now each of these fields that we've created, they're single line fields, that is one line. Now we could do the same with our ship to customer name. But instead of doing a line at a time, I'm going to click and drag and create a field for all of the information, for the attention to, the address, and city, state, zip. And I'm going to call that ship to and save it. We could do the same with our ship from. And you'll notice that I'm saving data outside of the length of here, right? So Indian Creek Furnishings and some more. Because in subsequent spool files, that data might be longer. The company name or address might be longer. So I want to accommodate my field to make sure we can include any data that's longer than, say, in Indian Creek Furnishings. I called the field ship from and I'll save it. And now we'll scroll down to the detail section. Now in the detail section, we can do similar, right? We can create a single line field. What we see most often is our customers, and even in-house here, we'll create columns. So we'll call it item number column or description column or quantity column and use fields that way. For simplicity's sake here, I'm going to create a single large field and call it detail. And I'll save it. So that's how we create fields from our spool file. And we can come back in here and create fields anytime. We can actually create them as we go even. But usually in the workflow, we create some fields up front, and then we can go start to design our form. So I'm going to close this, and now let's add some text. I'll click on the A button, and we have the properties for text. We can select a wide range of fonts here, affect the size and spacing, rotation. You can have color if you'd like. In fact, I'll go ahead and make this blue. And then we have our data. In our data, we could key in constants. Whoops. The wrong field there. We can come in the data and key in constants. I'll hit a space, and then we can select spool data, and now we can select the fields that we've created. So I'll go ahead and select the invoice number, and I'll select that field. Similar to Barcode400, we get editing options. I'm not going to use any, so I'll click OK. And I'm going to make this field a bit larger. I'll click OK, and we place it on our form. So pretty straightforward. I'll go ahead and add some more text, and this time I'm going to add the page number. We'll make that fairly large as well. I'll click spool data, and again, we're getting the invoice page number. So I'll select the field, no editing, and again, this is just the syntax to indicate the invoice page number coming from our file or our spool file. I'll click OK, and we'll put that on our form. Similar to Barcode400 as well, we can put barcodes, and let's just barcode the invoice number. We have all the symbologies we need to design any of our forms. We have our barcode height and width, whether or not we want to print the human readable. If I click on spool data, we can get the invoice number. Again, no editing options. I'll click OK, and we put that on our form. Now, I don't like this human readable below there. I don't really want that, so I could double click on the barcode to bring up the properties, or with the barcode in focus or selected, I could come over, click the drop down for human readable and select false. And there we have our barcode. That looks pretty good. We could do the same with our ship to and ship from. So I'll click on the A button. I'm going to select a different font here. I'm going to select this Firamona because I know I like that font. I'm going to click on spool data, and we'll get our ship to, which is the field on the left there. I'll select it and click OK and place it on the form. Now it's the line, the leading or spacing is a little high. There's too much space in between each line. So I could double click it again, or I could come over to the properties, select spacing, and squeeze that in. Now I've mentioned autonomy, the ability to manipulate these without getting programmers involved, and this is one of those features that allows you to do that. You would have to, if you were generating your forms just using your spool files, you would have to go in here and have a programmer change that within the spool file or the printer file that you might be using now. With our software, you can just you can affect the spacing or the leading on your own. There's no programming changes, so it's a nice feature there. Now let's go get the ship from. Click ship from, select that, click OK, and we'll put that on. Again, the same issue there, so I'm going to change the spacing. And now we have those two fields. Pretty easy, so we're really developing this form pretty quickly. Let's put the detail field on there. So I'll click my, my add text, click spool data. I'm going to get the detail, which you can see highlights all the information at the bottom of the field there. Select the detail. Let's see how this works out with spacing and font size. It looks pretty good. So now we have our detail. So I'm pretty quickly developing a form here and converting that traditional IBM iSpool file into a pretty decent looking form. And we got a few minutes to go, but not bad, not too bad so far. Now with TLAForms, we could use rectangles, circles, lines, and boxes, and we can draw tables or really whatever you want on your form. We also have the ability to create templates that you can reuse on different forms, and that's what I've done here. Before the webinar started, I created a little template, and to insert that template I can right click, select insert template, and I created it A_invoice temp. So when I select that template, it shows me a little picture of it, and when I select it, it puts it on my screen for me to manipulate and utilize. So I can drag it into place, and that's not too bad. And once that template's on there, I can go ahead and manipulate my other fields to fit the space that we have. This is really handy when you're doing something like a bill of lading that has if you're familiar with that, it has a lot of boxes and lines on it. And we actually have that and can provide that for you as a template, so you don't have to create it. And then you can just insert that onto your form. You can do that as an overlay, or when you do that as an overlay, it cannot be changed. You could even use it as a backside overlay, which a lot of people use as like terms and conditions on the back of a form. Or you can insert it like I did here, and when you insert it, the objects that make up that template become part of your form. So for instance, this ship to and ship from with the light blue box there, I can click that and select it and move everything down, and it's just part of my form. So it makes form design pretty easily. You can use much more complex features like all those boxes and stuff and reuse them. It makes it go pretty smooth. A couple of other features that we have in TLAForms: you can use two-dimensional barcodes like the QR code, just like we did in the Barcode400. I'll expand the size on this, and I'm just going to encode the TLAshford.com website, and we can put that on our form. Now while I'm talking, if you have an app on your phone, you can scan that barcode right from your screen, and it will take you to the TL Ashford website. I'll move some stuff around here just to make it look good. And lastly, we can add images, full color images, to the form if we'd like. So I'll click the Add Image button. These are all the different images that we have imported into the software already. If I click the folder to add one, we have our TLA logo there. If I click Open, we import that into the software, and now it's available for us to use. So I'll select it, place it on our form, and it's a little large, so we can affect the scale of that, and I'll just scale that down a little bit. There we go. So that's all there is to it. That's how you design a form, and a pretty decent looking form, I'd say, for the 10 minutes that we spent while I chatted away there and tried to explain it to you. I think hopefully you can see that You can even design these more quickly when you don't have somebody like me talking so much. So let's look at a couple of other features that we can do here. With TLAForms, we have actions, and actions allow you to show or hide information on the form. You can affect output properties, and I'm going to show you all that here really quickly. To create an action, we go to Spool Data and Action Configuration. In the Action Configuration menu, we don't have any available, so I'll click Add to add one, and I'm going to create an action called Show Barcode. And that's an arbitrary name. I name it whatever I'd like. Now, with actions, we can show, we can hide, we can replace strings of data, we can clear lines and remove lines, and you can use actions to enable and disable output. In this case, as my action name indicates, I'm going to show a barcode. And I'm going to show the barcode where the invoice page number is equal to, and we can do not equals, contains, greater than, or less than 001. So remember, this page number is the page number of the invoice within this spool file, and we have 3 invoices in this spool file. So I'm going to show the barcode where the invoice page number is equal to 1. I do not want it to show or be generated on the second page of our invoice. So I'll save that action and close. At that point, we go back to our barcode and we apply that action, and this is where we apply the action. You'll see we have the show barcode, so I'm applying the action and I'll click OK. No change there really. But the action's applied to the barcode. Notice that we're on page 1 of invoice number 1. If I go to the second page of the spool file, we go to page 2 of invoice 1 and the barcode disappears. If I go to page 3 of the spool file, where it's page 1 of invoice 2, we show the barcode. If we go to invoice 3 and page 1, the barcode shows. If we go to page 2 of invoice 3, the barcode does not show. The action is in effect. So you can use that to show or hide. And I'm going to show you a couple of other actions here just in a moment, more conceptually. But that's how you can use actions to affect your label as well, again, or form as well. Again, giving you some autonomy there so that you can manipulate your forms and design those how you like. So now with our form designed, let's turn our attention to the output properties and how we actually have TLAForms generate the form. You can access some of the output properties over here on the right, but to get the full set, we go to Tools and Advanced Options. Here we have the options, we have the PDF Output tab highlighted, and this is where we affect the output options for our form. By default, we name the PDF, when we generate the PDF, the name of the form, which is invoice. We could highlight that and change it to anything we want, really. Or we can leave it at invoice, and maybe we want to name it invoice dash, and then the actual invoice number, which would seem like a good idea. To do that, I'll right click and we can insert spool data, select that invoice number, select the field, and now the PDF name that we generate will be invoice and invoice pound. You can also specify the path where it's going to be saved on your network or archived. The rest of these properties in this area are PDF properties. We embed those into the PDF file. And we have some other properties. The main one that I want to show you, though, is the output mode. And this is where you can actually burst the spool file. For instance, the spool file that we're using has 3 invoices in it. If we process and generate your form normally, we'll actually generate a single PDF document with 3 invoices in it. But if you'd rather have a PDF document for each invoice, that is 3 PDF documents for invoice 1, 2, and 3, you burst it. And the way that you burst, you can burst per page, and there are some other options, but we would probably want to burst this based on the invoice number. When we generate this, then we'll say if it's invoice 1, create a single PDF document for invoice 1, create a second one for invoice 2, and a third for invoice 3. So that's how you set the output properties to burst. Let's take a look at the email properties. To email the form, we could just key in a static IP, or not IP address, a static email address. This will be invoiced or emailed to me. We could separate that with a semicolon and email that invoice to multiple people. We could also create an SQL statement we can create SQL within the software. You can use that as form data to actually put it on your form, or you can create an SQL to get, say, an email address out of an IBMI file based on, let's say, the customer number. To do that, we'll need to create an SQL statement. I can simply right-click and insert SQL. You can see up here that we have no SQL statements available, so I'll add one. And I'm going to call it, and again, this is arbitrary, I'm going to call it Get Email. We can select multiple record here to get multiple records of the email address. So I'll explain it here a little better momentarily. If our SQL meets the criteria, we could bring back multiple records if it meets, or we can bring back the first one that we find. Again, hang with me, I'll show you that in a moment. If we do multi-record, you can use a delimiter, and this is the perfect scenario for that. If we're going to do multiple email addresses, what's going to delimit those email addresses? And by default, in most email software packages, it's going to be the semicolon. You can also insert a custom SQL select statement, so you can get as detailed and creative as you'd like. For now, I'm going to leave custom off, and I'm just going to use the TLAForms option. So what you do here is you select a file on your IBMI where you want to search and get information using that SQL. I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to select the customast. And within the customast library, I have this customer master file. And what I want to do is I want to search my customer master file for the customer number. And I want to find a customer number that's equal to the customer number on our form in our spool file. So I'm going to select spool data, and we did create the customer number field here. So I'm going to search for this customer number, this 10034. I'm going to select that. I'm not going to use editing options. When I find a customer number in the file that's equal to the customer number in our spool file, I want to get from my file the email address. So again, we're looking at the customer number field from our spool file. We're searching our customer master file for that customer number, and when we find it, we want to get the email address. I'll go ahead and save that. One of the nice features when you're working with SQL is if you test, you can see here that we get Tom at Cincy Floor, and you can see on our form here, Cincinnati Floor is the company. So looks like we've got the right one. So I'll select that email, or rather that SQL statement, and it gives us the syntax for SQL. So we're actually getting the SQL statement as a to address for our email options. Pretty cool. We can CC and blind carbon copy. You have to have a from address when you're using email. You can put a subject. You can put a body that says that, hey, dear Tom, please pay our invoice as quickly as you can. We have to put kids through college, buy a new car, whatever the case might be. You can also use HTML in your body. So you can use HTML styles and insert images. You can get very creative, make your emails look really, really great, really professional as you're emailing that invoice to your customers. You can have additional attachments. You can also use actions, and I'm going to show you a conceptual view of an action that we can use with emails here momentarily. If we go to the printing options, again, we can print to any IBMI, local Windows, or Windows Network printers. I'm going to select local Windows here, and I could select any one of these printers, say a Canon copier that's outside my office here. We can select the number of copies or the drawer where we want to draw that data. We can also print variably. And if we wanted to print variably, I could right-click and we could use SQL. A lot of our customers do. They actually search a file for maybe a username and a printer associated with that user. Or we can have that printer in a spool file. So if I click spool data, you can see up here that I have a printer, and we can call that spool printer. Click save, and we can actually select that spool file data, and now that becomes our printer. You can also use actions, and again, I'm going to show you a sample of that as well. So that's how you define your output properties. Let's go ahead and save those. And let's go ahead and save our form. So that's TLA forms. Long-winded explanation perhaps, but a lot of different stuff you can do to create your forms within TLA forms. So I'm going to go ahead and move that off, and let's look at some of the other features that we have. Again, I mentioned bursting as we were designing our form. If you have a single spool file with multiple invoices in that spool file, when you set it to burst based on the, or to output as based on the invoice number, TLA forms will separate those invoices into separate PDF documents and store those wherever you tell us. Some of the other actions that you can do, just conceptually some stuff you can do with it is you can have a form, and if it's multiple pages, you can have totals say only on the last page. So continued on pages 1, 2, 3, or what have you. But then when it's the last page, you can put the summary type of information, totals, discounts, the order totals, and so on. Very easy to do. A lot of our customers use this particular feature. And by the way, we're more than happy to help you out with this because while it's really powerful, and usually it's actually pretty straightforward, but you gotta kind of think your way through and how to apply it. So we're more than happy, as always, to help. Another common feature is the remove line action. Very often you'll have address line 1, address line 2, and it's simply remove the line or clear the line if it's blank. And when you use that action, when we see a blank line, we'll remove it and slide the city and state zip up. I mentioned a cool kind of action you can use to email and or print. So let's say you wanted to email the invoice if you have an email address, but if the email address comes back blank, you want to print the form. So what we do is we create our SQL statement, and this is the exact same SQL statement that we created in our email. So a get email, we go out to the customer master, we find the appropriate customer number, and if we find an email address, what we could do is we could create an action that prints if there's no email address. So we create an action, print if no email, and what it does is it enables output. It enables printing when our SQL statement, get emails, comes back as blanks. So we actually put this action and apply it to the printer properties, right? So we're enabling printing. What happens is, if the SQL statement goes out and gets an email, and that email has an email address, we'll go ahead and email that form for you. If the email, however, comes back as blanks, we will route that form to a printer that you've chosen in your printer output properties. So pretty cool, very powerful. Again, it's one of those ones that we see used a ton. The cool thing about TLA forms is there's no programming involved. You don't have to do any programming to generate your forms. And the reason is, with the software comes a monitor. And this runs on your Windows server. What you do with the monitor is, you tell the monitor to watch or monitor an output queue where your invoices are going to be produced. In this case, sample form with TLA form. So you see our output queue is called sample form, and the library is TLA form. So we're monitoring sample form to see if spool files called invoice are being produced. In this case, they are. So this monitor watches this output queue, and when this invoice goes ready, we take the data from within this invoice, apply it to the form that we created, and then generate it based on the output properties that we set within that form. No programming. Now, again, that gives you the autonomy, and I've been harping on that. I think it's a very powerful tool for you to have. So you can manipulate and change and modify easily your forms and your labels. There might be times where you want to get a programmer to maybe put different data within the spool file, and that's understandable, but you still have the autonomy to generate your forms without programming by using the monitor and using the form designer. So makes it a really efficient tool. Again, TLA forms can print your label or your forms rather to any printer on the IBM I, the network, or local Windows. We can archive it as a PDF document to any network location and automatically email that. Probably the biggest feature response we get from our customer base is how easy it is to use. It's very intuitive, and like I said, if you can design easily a form within TLAForms. You can also do that within Barcode400. The functionality of the software with the ease of use is very high. There's tons of functionality within it. In fact, some of it's just limited by imagination. Again, no programming. And the bottom line is, and this is just a fact, there is just no other software package on the market for the IBM I that gives you the feature set of TLAForms for the price. And I'm not going to get into pricing here. You can contact your Friedman rep or Varsity or Logimax, and I'll give you that information momentarily. You can also go to our website to check out the pricing. You get everything with the software. It's just unmatched on the IBM I. So just to finish up the last minute or two here, our company, TL Ashford, we've been in business for over 35 years, and all we do are IBM I mid-range platform. So 36, 38, 400 to IBM I. Software is our only business on the IBM I, so obviously we are very knowledgeable about our own software, of course, but we're also very knowledgeable about the IBM I, and we can assist you and help you with our software on the IBM I. Both of our packages you'll have access to a complete training video library on our website. Each package has somewhere between 35 and 45 videos out there, about 2 to 3 hours worth of training for each software. You can start as a beginner, wind up at the end as pretty much an expert. And lastly, our support team, I'll humbly just say, is fantastic. I've been here 25 years. Most of the people in our company have been here at least half that or more. And, you know, you just assemble, you get lucky, you assemble just a great group of people who genuinely enjoy working with customers to help you, maximize our software, to solve any kind of issues, to make your life as easy as possible. So you get the training videos, you get access to our support team. We'll take great care of you and make working with our software as easy as possible to make you as productive as possible. So if you have an interest in our software, Barcode400 or TLAForms, both software, we offer a 30-day trial. It's fully functional. You load the software onto your IBM I and you work full on with it, and you have access to our videos, our support team to get that going as quickly as possible for you. Feel free to download that from our website, or you can contact any of the contacts you see here with questions about the software or how you can obtain the software. We certainly look forward to the opportunity to work with you. And I'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for taking your time today to learn about the software. We certainly appreciate it. My contact information is at the bottom of the screen there. If you'd like to contact me directly, I'd be more than happy to talk to you and look forward to the opportunity. Everyone have a great day and have a great Thanksgiving.